underlying things.
I don't remember any countries being mentioned in Frozen.
There was an ambassador
Right?
from another place. I was like, of course there's another. What?
Yeah, I realized there are
And
other
the
countries. I don't
princes
think
and-
any names are mentioned.
Well, they're not
Weaselton,
like
Wesselton. The whole thing of the ambassador characters, they were mispronouncing.
right.
Oh my god.
I don't remember. I don't know.
So it's not names you're going to recognize because they're made up, and it's one of those Germanic fairy tales where it's like you remember when Germany was 300 countries. This is probably one of them, maybe, But
Yeah.
but to say the politics didn't matter, it's like, did you even watch the show?
I didn't say politics didn't matter. I said I
Were
don't
you
remember
focused
there
on the
being
chick
other
with the
countries.
frozen powers or the redhead? Because you focused
Either.
on the wrong
He was
things.
focused on Hans.
Right.
I was just there for the songs.
He's like, gotta love that yak. So
That's all they have where he's from, or reindeer. So it's like, why is he wasting that good meat for ice fishing?
So welcome to the professional podcast.
yes.
Yeah, while you eat pizza with olives.
Oh, it's worse than
Olives
that.
are good.
No, they're not.
Don't focus on the olives. It's like spaghetti pizza this time. So instead of Euro pizza. So.
No, listen, I got here on time, so
It's not spaghetti pizza. It's bolognese.
Just
bolognese.
There's no pizza. There's no. You can actually get impact. What's that called in English? When they're like folded over, a calzone, right? But there's meat sauce and spaghetti in it. That's a common pizza here.
You people are so backwards.
Everybody giving him side eye. It's great. So
Yeah.
so today we're talking about Death of the Podcast. No, sorry, Death of the Author. Right? So this is supposed to continue the fight that we started 2 weeks ago that we didn't really fight, whereas genres are dumb because lit nerds are dumb. And speaking of lit nerds being dumb, authors don't know anything about the material that they wrote, apparently. Like their entire story. It does not matter what the author's interpretation is. So
Whose opinion is this anyway?
you Googled it. What are you asking that question for?
I know, but when we talked about it last, wasn't that like someone's opinion?
you brought it up as it was related to our genre fight and said we should talk about it.
Oh right, yeah, that's right. I just couldn't remember I couldn't remember if anyone's actually fighting for the side of the argument or
I
not.
don't think so. It was just related.
Yeah. I think everybody got excited that I went on a tirade and they're like, ooh, we should do that. So
Yeah.
Where did you post the thing? Was it in the Inner Circle chat? Because I was going to pull up the dude's name, right? Because
It was Roland Barthes. Bart? I don't know. He's French.
Of course he is.
From
When did I post it?
the
See,
Death
this
of
is
the
why I was
Author
gonna
from
look it up.
1967.
Yeah. So anyway, so kind of the idea that, no matter what's written or the analysis of such, the author doesn't know like the themes and the material that they were writing was like one of his main points.
They have no.
There we go.
It holds that the author's intentions and biographical facts, the author's politics, religions, etc., should hold no special weight in determining an interpretation of their writing. Usually understood as a meaning that the writer's views of their own work are no more or less valid than the interpretations of any given reader. Intentions are one thing, what was actually accomplished might be something very different.
Well, and I'm happy to argue about what was actually accomplished, right? Because that's where it comes up with J.K. Rowling, and you get some of the recent stuff to invoke Star Wars and get that out of the way, right? Rian Johnson's like, but this is what I meant to do, and like, you didn't get that across in the medium that you chose, right? So it doesn't matter. That's Exhibit A, but like there are so many times where I've seen people be like, well, the author says, no, this is what I was doing. And you're like, no, that's not what happened. Yeah, it is. He wrote the book. How do you know more about the book he wrote than he does? Like I think part of the hair splitting is like, get to the politics, get to the, world events, things like that. E.G.'s example earlier this week when we were talking about it a little bit was, Tolkien, right? If Tolkien came out and said his books weren't related to, the world wars, well, that's garbage because they're clearly influenced there, right? So like the author might be ignorant of his own influences, but to specifically draw in on, unrelated to their, politics and the time of the world, like they can't be, right? You're always a product of the world that you're
Yeah.
in, that you're writing about, right? Authors write what they know, whether it's subconscious or not. Like I can see some of that push, but this has always bothered me since high school. So this is one of my hangups, right? But that's the idea, taking like an AP Lit course and be like, oh, cool, I wonder what the author thought about that. Nobody cares because we don't care what the author thought about their own works. That's bullshit. Like, like pronunciation, what their motivations are, because, people have other motivations and things than you're going to see, right? And depending on the book, depending on the perspective in which it's written, that's not going to come through, right? If you've got a first person like the Dresden Files and he's a flawed narrator, you're not necessarily going to know why Butters is doing what he's doing and Sonya is doing what he's doing, because we wouldn't know that as people. So it's very important what the author tells you in those regards. And that's
a good example of that is the limp that Dream and Reach has, and Harry assumes it has something to do with Rashid. I believe, like at some point he has that thought,
right.
But Jim has said it's completely unrelated. It was a glacier or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like something stated in the books where it's like it's contradictory to what the author says, and then because a lot of people like they don't know that Jim said this, so they think Rashid had a beef with the island at some point.
Well, at some point he did. That part was stated. Whether or not he hurt the island was the question.
Right. Well, and Rashid didn't hurt the island per se. He focused on the wrong objective. Rashid, I mean, that's what focus the tank means, right? Like Rashid fell for the bait and the island got its ass kicked as a result. That's what happened. So, Rashid just made the wrong call and, and the island got hurt and bears a grudge. But like for that specific example. EG, do you want to go through what you posted here? Because I mean, it almost sounds like a refutation at first, but then again comes back around and
well, it was just at the end of the whatever, is that this trope does not mean quote unquote there is no such thing as canon for a work's events, which is a common misinterpretation of this theory used to justify canon defilement. It only proposes that questions not explicitly answered by the text of the work cannot simply be resolved by word of God, in this case word of Jim as we were just talking about, or by trying to guess the author's intention.
Right. Which, okay, so yeah, like again, so taking Ryan Johnson, right, because he's one of the main ones that comes to mind for me lately, right? I remember watching the movie. I remember being taken in by a lot of the same scenes for a lot of people, right? The black and white is fantastic. Everybody's shocked, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of what would quote unquote fix the movie came out interviews very shortly afterwards, right? Like there was a big old interview he did with StarWars.com that was like, oh yeah, shit, that's great. If it had been in the movie, that would have been great. So, judging the work by what's actually portrayed in the medium, I get that, right? That makes sense. And that sounds like what they're talking about. But then I think I get hung up on the end by trying to guess the author's intention. Well, obviously, don't put words in the author's mouth. But if the author comes out and says, no, you guys are misinterpreting it, you guys are wrong about what actually happened there, I don't see how someone would say, no, you're wrong because you're the author. Like you could say, well, you didn't actually put that in the book, so that's why we came to the wrong conclusion. Fine. You could say, okay, that's a flaw in the book, but I don't see how you get off telling the author he's wrong about what his intentions were, right? Like that's the part that I'm like, the arrogance, the unmitigated gall, of you to just, especially because in a lot of cases, no offense, but you're a bunch of nerds like we are, right? We're not more famous or more intelligent because we're podcasters. I know that's a shock. Podcasters everywhere are throwing packets at me right now. They're going to bring down our show.
How dare you? How dare you tell them our secrets?
Yeah, but what makes me more knowledgeable about, Star Wars than Andreas, for example, is like 40 years worth of study and backlog.
I'm
and
sorry, I'll have you
books
know I'm more
and-
knowledgeable than you on actual canon.
Yeah, on new canon. See, we don't call it actual canon, Andreas. It's just canon, right?
It's fake ass bullshit is what it is.
It's canon.
What
Determined by the author.
right?
Fuck the author.
Or in this case, the copyright holder. But that's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
No,
it's Disney. Fuck them.
Not even close. But that's kind of the idea, right? Like so that's where, like, having some pimple faced lit nerd be like, no, you're wrong about your works. That's just nonsense. Especially because, again, lit nerds don't follow anything that I could interpret as like scientific rigor, right? It's inconsistent between the two of them. That's why they get book clubs to argue about it. It's a debate of it's almost politics, right? They're just debating their interpretations, their feelings, etc. Sure, you can back that up with passages, but we all read the same book. Why is there an argument about it? So,
we did all read the same book series, and yet people are really fucking dumb on the subreddit.
A lot of that, because I was going to bring some of that up too, though, is like people jump to conclusions, like the stuff that
So
when you go off
direct evidence and stuff, like, yes, we all read the same thing, but they're like clearly highlighting some things and ignoring others, and that's what everybody is going to do.
But so to take it back to like a scientific process, right? You can't / shouldn't do that, right? We're all humans, blah blah blah, whatever. But like, it's easy to dismiss, like, I don't hang out with and talk to people who don't take the evidence or the book or the quote seriously, right? Like, you guys, you have crazy theories, Vadarung, Rashid, we're going to throw that out there, right? However,
prove me wrong.
It's two things, right? First of all, there's nothing directly refuting it, but there's also nothing necessarily completely, supporting it. And we only have to hear about it like once a month, whereas like some of the people in the subreddit, they get very defensive if they're completely fabricated, lack of evidence, time traveling Murphy shit gets shot down, and they double down and triple down and whatever. Like, we can have a conversation. We all know you're nuts, but we'll see it proven out in the text, right? But I think that, that's part of the difference, right? Like, you get the ones that just completely abscond with common sense, like there's plenty of speculation. We've had that plenty of times where we're like, okay, this is a theory, it feels right, but there's no direct evidence, so we'll just keep reading and see what happens. A lot of the cosmology stuff is, theory crafted from Sarek, or it's, word of Jim, or the little bit of nuggets we get from the book drives us in a certain direction. But it's not the same thing as being like, oh, we totally know that the planes revolve around the Earth and this is what's going on, and whatever like that. I don't know. I disregard people who are nuts, first of all. Like, I guess that's the end point.
What then when the author becomes nuts, like J.K. Rowling?
Like J.K. Rowling, and that's the challenge, right? Because like I said a little bit with the pre-show, right? J.K. Rowling is the complete support of this idea, right? That the author has no idea about her own works in this case, because I don't know if she's trying to be woke, or she just wants the kids to feel validated, or she's just trying to stay relevant so that people buy her books. But it's pretty clear that she's got a hang up about trans women not being actual women, right? And then at the same time, she's totally cool with like Hermione being a gay Black teenage girl, or whatever the case may be. Some of those might be mashed together for simplicity here, but like, I've seen the tweets where she's like, some child or some fan tweeted her and be like, oh, I always thought Hermione was Black, and she's like, she totally is. And I'm like, we got several movies and actual descriptions from the books, and things like that don't back that up. I don't have a problem with having her cast that way, or changing it up or anything like that. But like, what's the point in that, right? Like, why didn't you make her Black then, if that's what you wanted it to be? Why didn't you have Dumbledore come out and actually be gay?
Why would you know about Dumbledore though? Like, and that's one of the ones I can actually kind of see her point of, like, why would Harry know anything about Dumbledore's personal life?
It is actually.
I haven't read the
one
book,
is
so I don't know
feel
how
like
personal they get. But
I mean, you find out some things about his childhood because it becomes relevant, but his lovers and past, like that shit isn't for what Harry has to deal with him about. And therefore,
Right.
why would we know unless they like shoved it in his face? Because it would be an inappropriate crossing the line to know that about your headmaster.
I would say that the Dumbledore one is definitely up to interpretation because it's kind of it's hinted at a bit. At least that they had a very special.
Once he's dead, for all you people who still haven't read this, and you're getting into his personal life, then it's the kind of thing where it's like, so it walks this line that it could have been drawn a little clearer about his past with Grindelwald, and Harry's finding this out post-mortem. So if you want to make it explicit, there's a way to do it. Still within the realm of the story, it's like, this is why this happened, this is the lineage, this is, you're going into his mindset in book 7 of all these, why he was the way he was. So if you really want to make it explicit and not, fine line it, you could have. But it doesn't matter either way if you don't. But then if you're going to try and score points later on for it, you could have easily just made it what it was.
Right. So a little bit in support of it then, and this allow me to be completely ignorant because I've only seen the movies and I'm familiar with the barest of the text, right? So in the movies, if I'm not misremembering, when he looks in the mirror, he sees Grindelwald, right? Is that from the books?
That's from the books. I don't think that was ever
not
in
from
the movie.
Books. That's in Fantastic Beasts.
Is it? Okay.
Well, yeah, they show that part in Fantastic Beasts. And in the
Gotcha.
books, it was he sees his sister and his family, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because his sister dies.
Right. Well, because that gets retconned that she was the shadow creature that.
Well, that's people think maybe that is now where that's going because Rowling is fucking retarded and has now made a secret Dumbledore, but maybe he's not a secret Dumbledore and this, that, and the other. It's just like, stop it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I was curious about that because, I remember the scene and I was like, yeah, I mean, when Harry looks in the mirror, he sees his family, right? So, it's a little bit telling that you see this guy and it becomes a little bit like, ancient historians, right? Like, well, Dumbledore saw his secret lover boyfriend in the mirror, but maybe they're just best bros, like that where it's like, okay, other than hitting you on the head with it, which might have been a little much in the early 2000s, even still, because we still have some of that where it's like, Destiny just went through a thing. I know you guys don't have a latch here, but like there are 2 primary characters in Destiny that are heroic badasses. One literally builds like a time machine to go save the other one. And so like lots of people that are, I don't know, I guess even more friendly to that lifestyle than I am were like, oh yeah, they're totally secret lovers. And I'm like, I don't mind that interpretation. It doesn't change the characters for me at all, but I'd like them to come out and say that instead of people just being like, oh yeah, totally. And then they finally do, right? They start sending like love letters to each other and like, their last thoughts are of this other person, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like that's even like that happened within the last 3 months or whatever. So culture, I think, is there too, where it's like, how much can the author get away from without, some right-wing group or whatever coming down and saying, oh my God, I can't believe you put your gay secret wizard headmaster in with the gay secret Hitler headmaster or whatever.
No, she doesn't seem to oppose to hatred from a particular ideology for certain things, so.
Right. And that's why like the Dumbledore one to me has been like, that was the first one, right? That was one she came out with very shortly after his death, I want to say, or whatever, or very
or
shortly
after the book series, whatever it was.
Right, it was like pretty soon after the books were done.
But the ones that really got me were the like recasting characters or whatever, especially like Hermione. It's like she's one of the main 3. Like, what do we not know about this character?
I think one of
she's
my
like, oh yeah, totally.
One of the ones that annoyed me the most is actually more of a lore thing she added, where it's like, no, that's ridiculous. Where she was like,
they were shitting on the floor.
Yeah, before plumbing, wizards were just shitting on the floor and then magicking it away.
Right, and then
I was like,
And then had to come up with another retcon because it's like, wait a minute, the Chamber of Secrets is in a fucking bathroom. They had plumbing. What are you talking about? No, that was built after. Oh, so people did know that there was a chamber there? What? The more you try and do, the more you then have to retcon and answer for yourself.
Oh wow, that is. See, this is why. So like, she's not usually top of mind for me because I disregard crazy. Like, I can't spend too much time thinking about that because it's nuts. And it
She
just
also threw in that there. Oh, by the way, there was a Jewish wizard there. It's like, oh, great.
Right. I think I didn't remember the specifics, but that does sound familiar about being another one of those. Like, why not just come out and say it? Like, first of all, it shouldn't be a surprise, right? If the wizards are coming from all these countries and whatever, like, if anything would be the surprise, is he an exchange student? Because shouldn't he be going to, like, the other school that they have in books 5 or 6 or whatever?
The schools were introduced there's a French school,
right,
and one in Bulgaria.
Right.
Is there more
Tibetans
schools?
and Durmstrang.
No, because that was the only ones that we see in that book because it was the
Right.
Triwizard Tournament, so there was 3 schools that were competing.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you get the
But,
ones
I mean,
later
we-
for America and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
So presumably that's the 3 European schools, and people travel there from all over Europe.
But that's the thing. There's probably more. They've probably
There-
expanded.
Right.
There has
There
been
has to be.
expanded on that.
How is there not a German school?
Right.
It's just,
Well, I mean,
of course there
I
would
could-
be.
I could see it being not so many because wizards aren't supposed to be that huge a part of the population. Like, they're there, but they're not. I mean, I think they're a little more populous than the Dresden Files, but not by much type deal.
Right.
And obviously the magic's easier because it's just
So it's a
inherent. You
community.
just
It's a
kind of start
community
doing shit.
of thousands, basically.
Well, yeah, but in general, like if there were only 3 schools, I could sort of, okay, that kind of makes sense. I don't think they're huge. I don't know why 2 of those schools would be segregated boy girl, but
Right.
I didn't realize you were that, whatever about it. But okay, fine.
So you go
I mean,
to
you
co-ed
think-
Hogwarts, or you go if you only want segregated in Stormstring, or
I mean, if they have the same general population of Hogwarts, where it was like 100 kids per grade, give or take, that seems to be more. If there's 3 schools like that, that seems like it would be a more or less representative European population of wizards. That seems like it would fit to me.
Now I'm going to have to go to Reddit. I'm sure there's an analysis.
Nice.
How many wizards in the world and what the geopolitical distribution of such would be.
But I mean, that's
you
the thing.
know-
It's like that's a different book series. That's a different whatever. So it's like, fine, write that. Not Rowling, but
Yeah.
somebody write.
some fan fiction who can write.
Yeah,
Because
somebody
the
else.
author can't anymore.
Anyway. Zack Snyder's
expected more
another big
arguing.
offender. Zack Snyder's another big offender of this with Superman, especially in Man
Okay.
of Steel, where he's like, yeah, only about 5,000 people died from the events of Man of Steel. I was like, are you insane?
There's no fucking way. Only 5,000.
5,000 people probably died just in the Smallville portion.
Smallville has less people than that, doesn't it, though? Shouldn't it?
Listen,
I mean,
I'd have to go rewatch it, but then I'd have to go rewatch Man of Steel. So my only hope for Zack Snyder right now is that he's doing Army of the Dead and it's coming out on Netflix. And I'm like, oh, for the love of God, please make it at least half as good as it was Dawn of the Dead, right? Because that's like my favorite zombie movie. Like, don't get me
Army of the Dead,
wrong,
is that the
it's
heist
not
one?
aged well,
Army of
but
Darkness.
No, Army of
no,
the
Army
Dead.
of Darkness is a different thing. So
No, Army of the Dead. Yeah, that's a new one coming out. Yeah,
yeah,
And that's
so-
the heist one,
it's
right?
the heist.
It's all zombie
yeah.
shit.
I mean, I
Zombie
gotta say,
apocalypse,
I like the
bank
idea of
heist.
the concept.
Yes, just give it to somebody else to write the story.
Yeah. Well, but this is where he got started. So that's where I'm kind of like, hopefully this gets him to his roots a little bit more and, whatever else. But yeah, like his superhero stuff, I'm interested to see the Snyder cut and see what he was supposedly actually going to put out. But, like judging from Man of Steel and things like that, like I think it was okay. It might even be some of the better Superman movies, right? Like
This is
but-
why, which would branch off into another topic, why you can listen to the fans to a certain extent, i.e. Sonic's design, but
right.
when you have a proven track record of a guy who can't write, and just because there are DC stands out there, I don't give a shit. You don't deserve a Zack Snyder movie with his vision. I'm sorry shit got fucked up. It was a bad movie. This one's going to be a bad movie. Stop wasting our time.
Has there been a good DC hero movie?
No,
Shazam
Yes.
is the closest.
Shazam is sort of entertaining. That's about it.
Wonder Woman, the first one.
No, not good.
Mm.
Yes.
First one's
It was good right until they
watch it.
I don't know.
Okay,
Watch it again.
it was good. It was good until the end. You're right. So
They did not stick the ending. Other than that, it was a pretty good. It was Marvel, medium Marvel level.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a mediocre Marvel level first half of the movie, pretty much.
The second,
but by DC standards, that makes it the best one.
I don't know. I think Shazam's the best one.
How far back are we allowed to go? Because the second Nolan Batman is pretty good. So
Yeah.
Well, it's not part of the DCEU.
That's not part of the.
so it's not the
DCU.
DCU. Yeah. Okay.
No, it starts with Man of Steel. As far as the first movie, chronologically, it starts with Wonder
If I
Woman.
just want to pick the best movie based on DC material, it's the second Batman movie from Nolan.
Honestly, I think it's Batman Begins. I like The Dark Knight, but there's a lot of stuff in there where it's like it's really just it's the character stuff that you're really going for because the plot it's got holes everywhere.
The characters are just so strong that for me that's the best one. But
right,
I mean, you have a fair point. But
and
I mean, I guess that depends.
And since they shit the landing with The Dark Knight Rises, which was just bad.
I guess it depends what you like. What kind of I was gonna say reader, but what kind of like consumer you are of stories. Some people is the world building, some people is the characters, and some people is the plot and a mix of the things, right? But I'm very world building character, not so much plot is important, but it's not as important as those other things.
So the original Superman with Christopher Reeves is the best DC movie. Is what we're going with.
So like if we go all DC for all time, that's what you go with.
That's what you said. What's the best DC movie? You did not restrict it.
Well, I was.
Well, in
I
that
was
case,
coming
is it
in
not
with your
then
thing,
maybe Joker?
So, yeah.
Yeah, it might be Joker.
I don't know.
Then.
I haven't finished Joker, so unless it gets loads better, like
What
are you watching it in 20-minute increments?
Well, I have children, so I have to wait until they're asleep, and then we just it's like, am I really sacrificing sleep time for this? Was kind of where we were at. So I think we made it 20 or 30 minutes in, maybe halfway, something like that. But I don't like I can get behind character stuff, but if you want to talk about like let's build a triangle between character, world building, and plot, Joker was way into the character section, and that loses me. Like even for superhero shit, like I don't want to see Iron Man mowing the lawn in his underwear. Like I don't need that kind of character driven story, right? You got to balance it out a little bit, and there wasn't enough plot or action from what I had seen so far to kind of justify continuing with it. I just haven't revisited yet.
I would say there's definitely a pretty strong story or plot in the movie, and it's very, very character focused. There's not much action in it as such, but
no, it's kind of
it picks up,
build-up.
and it's the last 20-minute type thing where most of the quote unquote action will be.
Yeah,
I was talking with my friend
justifies
about
the
it
rest
the
of
other
it.
day, and I think what I said was, it's a really good movie. So it's one of the better movies I have seen, but it has some really painfully slow moments where I was a little like, this is just a little too slow for me. But that doesn't mean it's like.
And it's one of the better movies for doing Gotham as a quote unquote character, which is what a lot of people like. That Batman Begins was much better than the other two for that, because once you get to the next two, it just became New York, but by a different name.
Right.
And
Gotham was definitely way more had a personality in the first Batman movie than the
Even
other
the
two.
old-
It's a big city.
even the old ones where like the first one is all creepy and the others are all Art Deco, but it's like, okay, they did something with it. And it's batshit insane.
Batshit.
Yes. Maybe that's the best DC movie, the first Batman with Keaton.
I mean, it's
So any
got
other
moments,
good
but
examples where the author just like really fucks with their own material after the fact, other than like J.K. Rowling or the Star Wars guy?
Well, I mean,
I-
I don't know that there's one. It depends. Like if they just go back and start redoing everything or contextualizing, Rowling probably is the premier example for right now. I don't know anyone that's really. I mean, most people that go back and do that with their work are doing nonfiction stuff. I mean, they're your
Updating
philosophers
things,
and your historians and that the other thing. I don't know anyone that's actually I think Conan Doyle was kind of, because he didn't really want to keep doing Sherlock, but he just kept doing it for the money and people wanted it.
Yeah,
So
I've heard
he-
things like I
he
haven't read
tried to
them.
kill the character to get
he
out,
basically
and then-
considers everything post Reichenbach as like alternative whatever type deal, if I'm remembering correctly.
I would not watch the very good Sherlock BBC show Beyond Reichenbach's Fall either.
Well, yeah, I mean
It was
It
very
tends to
good
be
until
that-
that point.
it tends to be the highlight.
Just like when they're at the funeral in the end, just turn it off. Just turn it off there and don't watch anymore.
Yeah, season 3 is like and then 4 is like well. The movies
It
I
gives
enjoy.
me,
I enjoy the Downey movies. Although again, I'm ambivalent about the third one because you're done with Moriarty.
They're certainly they're different. It's a different kind of Sherlock, but I enjoy them. And I mean, it's very hard. Even I haven't seen it yet, but I think I would, to an extent, even enjoy the Doolittle movie because Downey's in it, and the man oozes charisma like nobody else.
Yeah, his versions are like, I mean, steampunk light is the best thing I can say because it's the kind of thing where it's slightly futuristic technology compared to what it actually was, but it's fine for what it's doing, and he does the character well.
I especially like those breakdown scenes where it's like he uses his brain to fight.
Mhm.
Which I find them enjoyable.
They go through the whole thing. Yes, I agree.
Did we run out of Death of the Author shit?
I don't know.
I think the problem is here that we all think Death of the Author is stupid, so nobody is arguing against it.
I'll argue against it in this respect that it's going to be situational for everything. I don't think we can just blanket say it's not valid because we've already come up with an example. And there are going to be instances where fans or people are going to know the work better to a certain degree. I mean, I have no problem saying that we, as a general rule, can follow things better than Butcher, as he's already said, because he's got 5 different versions of the story in his head. So there's going to be things we're always going to remember easier than he is. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to predict the grand story arc or come up with it to any great degree. But there's always going to be people that kind of get it in a way that even the author's not going to.
I mean, we have probably, each of us in the podcast, I guess, probably read the finished books more times than Jim has, for sure, right? Like he's not rereading his own books all the time.
Well, no, because he's got it all in his head, but that's where you get the problem with, he sees 25 branching realities and we see the finished product. And so but just because he wrote it down doesn't mean the other ones get out of his head either, is where the challenge comes in, I think. So it's
like Doctor Strange, he's sitting there seeing the
pretty
futures.
much, but not like 14 million and 5 or whatever. So, but
let's see. I gave up the list of people who started to hate their characters, so you could go with that. So yeah, Conan Doyle's on there, and Agatha Christie, because apparently you can't write a detective story without learning to hate your own character. Stephen King's pretty good at hating his work, or at least the adaptations of his work.
There are exceptions, obviously. What did he hate any of his own work specifically? Because I'm curious about that one. Like if you have that.
I think he hates some of his. He hates
He came to regret writing Rage. He doesn't like Dreamcatcher. He said he was high on oxytocin.
Dreamcatcher, that one.
He doesn't like Pet Sematary. He finds it too bleak.
I love it.
Okay.
Misery, I don't think he likes too much. At least it says here.
I mean, that
Yeah,
was
he
Because
kind of,
it's terrifying.
yeah,
like-
but that was a self-insert, if anything. Like,
Self-insert in a terrible situation.
I know he tends to insert himself in most of his books, at least as a side character, but that one was like, I should be punished. I'm going to write this book.
Yeah.
What's his face? Frank Miller. I don't think he likes a lot of his darker takes on the graphic novels as time has gone on.
Interesting. He doesn't like a lot of things, though.
Yeah,
I gather. So
he also thinks he's an actual wizard. So like,
right.
Alan Miller?
Yeah, but as far
Alan
as
Moore. Oh yeah, Alan Moore's the one. You're right.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
Frank
okay.
Miller.
Yeah.
Alan Moore is the one who thinks he's an actually a wizard.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the Watchmen guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for those guys, like, hate seems to be their primary currency, you know, like it comes out in their art, which is great, you know, whereas like, you know, Geiger had a different, you know,
Well,
thing,
yeah, it's
but-
probably the kind of thing where it's like if it had remained a niche with a cult following, it probably would have been like hate for the fact that his work's not being recognized properly. And then once
Right.
it crosses a certain threshold, it's like, oh, fuck this work. It's so commercial.
he's a hipster for himself. Like
People are like
I
that.
liked it before I was cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, fuck that shit.
Right now it's mainstream because it was too cool.
I never got that.
Hey,
Yeah,
Tolkien hated Lord of the Rings.
No. Really?
J.R.R. Tolkien grew to dislike The Lord of the Rings mostly because of the extreme obsessiveness of its fans, saying, quote, they were involved in the stories in a way I'm not, and referring to them as, quote, my deplorable cultists.
Okay.
There you go.
And with how many times people try to put labels or interpretations on him, I'm sure he got annoyed with that. Exactly. He made statements of like it's allegory more than, or it's applicable more than allegory, I think he said. He
Yeah, he
wasn't
wasn't a
writing
big fan of
specifically
allegory.
to the World War I or II connotations. Like, yeah, sure, it might be similar, but so what?
Right. Well, and I know he had some issues with, you know, the growing fantasy, right? Because in a way, like he really gave a foundation to a lot of modern fantasy, but he hated a lot of what people did with like elves and dwarves following, right? And so I can kind of see some of that, I guess, but I just think it's kind of funny about a guy complaining about the obsessiveness of his fans because he wrote a language and was like, oh, this really needs a book. So, I mean, things that sound semi-obsessive, you know, were how many 20 some odd volumes into the histories of Middle Earth because of how much he wrote, you know, and it's like, you guys are way too obsessed with my work. So,
I mean, I'm sure it would be weird if you were the person who made the Klingon language and all of a sudden people tries talking to you in it. Like, just go outside, get a life. Maybe you don't need to obsess about this too much. Whoever made it probably has a weirder position than
there's an
anything else.
institute. There's a Klingon language institute. Like,
And did
I'm
the guy who
sure-
created the language start that?
I think he's involved. Like, you're gonna make me look all this up. Like,
It was a dumb example. I was not expecting this seriously.
You're talking to a Trekkie, man. You can't just pick on that. I mean, Klingon's one of the more developed like fantasy languages, so, or fiction languages, however you want to talk about it. But
We forgot to do our Star Wars version of this with George Lucas going back and doing the special editions.
Oh yeah, fuck him for that.
Yeah.
right. That's fair. It like some of it, I don't know. Some of it's okay, but you know,
Yeah, a
like,
couple of things are okay.
but the stuff with Hayden Christensen, all that shit can die. Like, for example, like, you know, why we got to replace the original actor of Vader and everything with Ghost Hayden Christensen? Like, no. So, like, did Yoda come back young and sexy? Did Obi-Wan?
Neither
come
did
back young
Obi-Wan.
and sexy? Yeah, right. So why does Vader?
Well,
get
because
it?
that's when he was
So-
last a Jedi, so he gets that's his last save point as a Jedi. So he gets to go
Right.
back. Even though you should be able to argue that like he redeems himself, so in that moment he's turned into it again. So it's
If we only stick to the original trilogy, everybody else who turned into Force Ghosts, their body dissolved, but not him.
well, we don't know because he was
Also,
he doesn't dissolve right then, but then he also
he dies. We don't see him disappear.
His
We see him for a
armor-
pretty lengthy time. We see a body being burned, supposedly.
Well, yes, but you don't know because he
40%
puts the
of one
mask back
because
on,
he's-
so you don't know if it's empty or he's just burning the.
I think
Whatever.
we're jumping through hoops here to make it that he did disappear. 'cause
Yes,
he clearly
but
didn't.
because it's you want to have the moment there with him, talking to him.
Maybe
But
that's-
Qui-Gon didn't disappear either.
No, but Qui-Gon
Maybe
was
we
the
extend-
first quote unquote to do the
But yeah, he
fast.
didn't
So
disappear.
I think where you had to come in with the revisionist is that George Lucas realized that, wait a minute, if he came back as old Anakin, he should be like 60% of the person that he is because all his robotic limbs didn't cross over. So I don't know. It does
You get
get
a whole
ridiculous,
spirit body.
but
He
he
also
could have left
both-
those scenes alone.
Didn't
Is the
Yoda?
point.
I mean, they all have clothes, and like Yoda still has his like stick and whatnot. So what
What,
if
you
they
wanted
have?
to show up naked?
No, but
Well,
like if you have
Obi-Wan
an
left his
issue
robe
with
behind, so
if you
Right.
have an issue with artificial limbs, like then they shouldn't have anything that isn't just their own body.
I think in the end, what the Force Ghosts were like, the way they look, I think it's how they think of themselves, probably. If I were
Yeah,
to like give,
That's the
so
most
even that,
generous
it's like I don't want to
explanation.
think. I don't want to think of myself as hating Christians in that point.
Yeah. I mean, that we're getting hung up on that one.
why
But
are you
the
hating on
whole
Hayden? He's not a
the-
bad actor per
Because
se. He had,
Justin
like,
decided to, and it's the
he didn't
easy
have-
thing to do.
I mean, look at the
because
material
that-
he had to work with.
because that scene is ridiculous. There's no reason to have changed it. That is the entire point.
I think it's coupled with the fact
It
that
is-
he's
was
never
not great.
he's never actually been in anything good. Like you see Robert Pattinson go on to have a pretty decent career of
Mhm.
other than Twilight. Like I haven't seen The Lighthouse yet, but that's supposed
It was
to be
good. It was weird. It was bizarre.
And but you can tell he's an actor. Like he can act, as opposed to Hayden Christensen, who the next thing he did was like Jumper, and then
Mhm.
nothing of note really. So it's like, well, okay, people
Right.
aren't as forgiving.
I don't think he was a bad actor in Star Wars or in Jumper for that matter. Jumper was not a good movie per se, but I don't think he did bad in it.
No, he wasn't the problem with that movie.
Which one?
Jumper.
So maybe he's
No.
bad at picking projects. So he picked Star Wars, a surefire winner, right? Wrong.
I mean, it worked out.
The dialogue is fairly bad.
Whether you like
those
him or
movies.
not,
It's
there-
coarse and it gets everywhere.
Whether you like him or not, as far as pop culture annals go, he will be there forever. So if that's what you want as an actor is to live through time, he's got that.
Right.
If you think about it, though, the Force goes like Obi-Wan as an old man is way too old compared to when we last see him, right?
Well, yes, but that's again more George Lucas nonsense with going back and doing things and not doing it properly.
But it's just
'Cause,
you gotta.
I
do
mean,
some
you go-
suspension of-
You
Of
start with The
disbelief
New
there.
Hope, and he's like, 70, 80 years old. This is kind of a slightly bygone era. It's been enough time. The Clone Wars are, hinted at, but they're not, there's stuff, but it's not like fleshed out that this was only 16 fucking years ago.
Yeah, it's
Right,
it's
right.
kind of problematic that it was that short a time ago.
And then, of course, you get the asshole J.J. Abrams who took that particular thing from the prequels where it was the bad timeline stuff. And he's like, oh, the world has entirely forgotten about what Jedi are in 20 years with the good
Right.
guys running the show.
Right. Yeah, like, oh, I'm going to double down on that part. Right? Like, he's still alive. It's not even like all the Jedi were exterminated, which didn't actually happen, but was assumed to have happened by A New Hope. Like that's the other thing that gets me is like, yes, Obi-Wan is the last Jedi, except for that last Jedi and Kanan over there and those last Jedi and all the
Ahsoka
Jedi we
over
taught
here.
there. And that's why it strikes me as hilarious when everybody's like, "Oh, Grogu's a goner because Luke was the last Jedi." Yeah, who the hell isn't? Everybody's the last Jedi. Fucking Leia's
Well,
the last
but that-
Jedi. Did
again,
you see her fly?
That worked. That was fine in the last trilogy because Obi-Wan says we're all but extinct. So and then you see there's 2 Jedi Masters, and then Yoda dies and tells Luke he's the last one. Then you get all the other extra shit that it's like, oh, by the way, everybody's fucking still alive.
Right. Yeah. Ahsoka's not a Jedi, though. Just because she's got
Right,
Jedi
yeah.
powers and Jedi training and Jedi morals and
It's
lightsabers,
little-
she's not a Jedi. So.
It's a little frustrating because a lot of the Star Wars stuff, except the new trilogy, is good on their own, but when you have to combine it in
but
a
when
bigger
you
world,
put it into a fucking universe,
when you put it into
exists-
kind of a bigger world and the things that are said in these other things, logically, it's just like it falls apart a little bit. A lot.
Oh, come on, people, just write your shit.
How did we end up back on Star Wars again?
Because
The
George
director
Lucas,
did it.
death of the author, made stupid
Yeah.
changes to special editions.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's funny we got hung up on the Hayden Christensen thing because that one, was like one of the end ones, but the one that really gets people going and is still a trope after all this time is the Han Solo.
Yeah.
That is still the
So-
most
the point,
egregious one.
they made the whole movie of Solo about trying to drive home that point.
Right. And he still maintains like, oh, I didn't really like the moment because it made him too much of a bad guy. Like, that's the point. He's an anti-hero. That's why everybody
first of all,
loves him.
It's not too much of a bad guy when a bounty hunter has a gun on you that you shoot him. That doesn't. That is in
That
a
moment
space setting.
Did
it's
not
like
need revisioning.
nothing.
Yeah,
None of
They
it.
just cut off someone's arm for looking at someone else wrong. This is expected. They established the setting that the cantina is dangerous. Bounty hunter's going to die.
Well, to be fair, that was self-defense. So the guys.
So was shooting the bounty hunter.
I know. That's my point.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, he's very clearly being held at gunpoint, threatened with his life and everything like that. But because he shoots first, it becomes a thing. And then instead you get the very, very realistic magic that I've had a gun on you for the last 2 minutes while we've been talking, but I somehow missed. And then you shot me. So,
And you had a super jerky head motion for no reason.
So
Yeah.
I'm a bounty hunter, but not a very good one.
Yeah.
That can be fun.
And then not only that, you follow that rewrite up, that reshoot up, with then he goes and has that awkward ass fucking scene with Jabba.
Right.
And it's like on top, it's compounding the problem.
Right. Yeah, because like they took that from a deleted scene, didn't they? Where he talks to a human, and then Lucas is like, "Oh, wouldn't it be so much better if he talks to Jabba?" Because I remember seeing like a making of for this scene, and they were like, "Yeah, so one problem, like, where's his tail? Oh, just have him step on it. Isn't that hilarious?" And it's like, I mean, it kind of works, but like, why does it need to be there? Why did this? What did this add to
and then
the
at
thing?
the end, Boba Fett's the last one on the screen, because even back then they were like, "Oh, Boba Fett's so cool, people are gonna love this."
Yeah, because he's the coolest. Completely mishandled, but
yeah, Mandalorian.
He's gotten some redemption, I feel like, since then.
Well, yeah, but again, that's revisionist, right? Like, what did the original creator do with the character versus what did the fandom do with the character?
I mean,
like,
in the original trilogy, he's a very not. There's nothing to him, right? But he looks cool.
Right.
That's about
He's
it.
He's a competent enough bounty hunter to be on Han's trail and get to Cloud City first and be able to collect the bounty. That's enough.
Right.
And then he's a bumbling idiot who gets his jetpack fucking accidentally blown off and falls into the Sarlacc.
Right.
And then he's alive again.
I mean, to be fair, it's very reasonable that he survives to falling into the Sarlacc, seeing as it's stated in that movie, you'll be digested over 1,000 years. So you're not going to die instantly.
Digested, but how is he alive?
How does he get out?
You can starve to death.
I think it's done in a comic.
This is definitely a problem of the old EU. They're the ones that first did this shit.
Yeah. I know they go through and address it in the EU, but again, revisionist, right? So, because what we know from the movie is he falls in, and after a week, he's going to die from dehydration. If not sooner, because he's being digested. So assuming at some point they get the nutrients out of his body as part of that process. But yes, you get, from the Bounty Hunter saga or whatever it was, but they did like Bounty Hunters as like a series very briefly. I read like the first book, and that's one of like 3 stories you get for him being in the Sarlacc and getting out, but it's one of the more detailed and yeah, like he's in there for a while being digested. His armor is all like wrecked and shit, but has him talking to the Sarlacc, and so you get some of those details. But yes, as far as like what Lucas gave us a guy who was barely more competent than Greedo, taken out by a broomstick. So, you, director, you look like you've been wanting to say something for a little bit.
I had a thought about revisionist and different authors in terms of Dune. Like Frank
Okay.
Herbert wrote the first 7, and then his son started writing up until current even. And all I've heard is that people say don't read the ones that the son wrote, but I don't actually know if he's revised anything or changed anything. I was wondering if you guys knew anything about it.
I'm not that into it, honestly. Like I've probably heard, but I read the first one and I feel it's fantastic, and I could definitely see doing like a Game of Thrones treatment, right? Like I could see doing something where it's like, this is very political. There's a lot of world building. It's about betrayal and that the noble houses fighting each other and shit like that. Totally on board with that sort of thing. But as far as like the overall like story arc and where it goes from there, like I've seen the movies a couple of times, but like the movies, I don't really feel like did it a ton of justice. They are still pretty good for what they are, but yeah, I have no idea for like the long arc. Unfortunately, my dad would know that, but can't ask him. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone does know of like the qualitative differences between Frank and Brian Herbert's writing. I'd be interested in seeing a breakdown of it, so I don't have to read it myself.
Right. You'll get there eventually, just not in time.
Have you started Lord of the Rings yet?
No.
I know. That's why I'm like, there's no way. Like, as much as I like Dune, go fucking read Lord of the Rings first.
I've read Dune before. I've read the first 2 of Dune, actually.
Okay.
I haven't read The Hobbit. I did read Gideon the Ninth, and that was lovely.
I am planning on reading that too.
It was amazing.
That's why I got it for you.
I was giggling most of the time. It was great.
What's this one?
It's the lesbian necromancers in space.
Oh, geez.
It was wonderful.
It actually comes, like, it's getting pretty great reviews from pretty much everyone who reads it.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Lesbian necromancers in space.
Right.
Gideon the Ninth, and then the second one is Harrow the Ninth, which I haven't quite dived into yet, even though I've received it. Is because it is in second person, I want to be really willing to dive into that and get used to it before just
Is the second one in second person?
Yes.
Why did you do that? No.
Because nobody
does. Because the third one's in third person.
I don't know.
Is the first one in first person?
No, it's in third.
Okay.
When did they go to fourth person?
That would have been funny if it was first person, first book, second book, third person, third book.
It was wonderful. Highly recommend. Very fun. I want it to be an anime if it ever gets adapted, because it would just help the weirdness of it instead of live action animated.
My hot take for the day is, when we're speaking of Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I actually think I enjoy The Hobbit way more than the Lord of the Rings books.
Because you're
Right.
I've actually read The Hobbit multiple times.
Are we talking about the movies or the book?
The book.
No, you're out. You're out.
The movies is even worse.
No, but I needed to focus. I needed to see what we were talking about before we started in. But so the Hobbit book starts out with each of the 13 dwarves putting their cloak on a particular peg in the house, which is like the first 23 chapters of the Hobbit. So, or at least it feels
in an already very small book by comparison.
Now, don't get me wrong, by the time we get to the Battle of the Five Armies, it is like one of my favorite scenes in The Lord of the Rings, which is why I was so pissed about The Hobbit and the Battle of Helm's Deep and things like that when we got to that point. But that doesn't make The Hobbit the best book. Like,
I didn't say it was the best. I said it's the one I enjoyed the most.
Right. Fair. Yeah.
But, I got some good takes.
Name 1, 2. We got Donor Pizza. We got Bologna Pizza. We got The Hobbit.
Bolognese.
Is your
spaghetti
favorite
pizza?
Right.
There's no spaghetti
with
on the
olives.
pizza.
Euro pizza, spaghetti pizza. The Hobbit is the best book. Go read The Land. Like,
the
what do we
sequel
got?
trilogy is good.
Do not read The Land.
I like all the Star Wars movies except the new trilogy.
If you like an inconsistent main character and stat sheets, then please read The Land. It is a very popular lit RPG, but it sure wasn't for me.
So seriously, what's a good take? Come on.
You just mentioned a bunch of good
6 minutes.
Wait, let me guess. Your favorite Indiana Jones movie of the original 3, because we don't talk about Crystal Skull, is Temple of Doom. You like Temple of Doom the most.
Which one is Temple of Doom?
The second one, with Short Round, with the little Asian kid.
They pull a heart out of a dude.
No, my favorite
one is the whole Kali Ma cult and everything.
One is the one with his dad.
It's great.
There's a reference in Justin even, Mike.
I don't care. It's the worst of the 3.
No, I'm just saying for his sake. Like, how does he not know?
It's been a while since I watched.
Yes, the last Crusade is a fine choice.
I think the third one's my favorite, right?
We're gonna have to do this. Should we do this next episode? Is like
we're just gonna argue about Indiana Jones.
No. I was thinking we'll go down all of the popular like movies and books that we feel like Andreas has read, and we'll take the shittiest takes so that we'd be like, this is what Andreas's takes are.
Okay.
Because we'll probably be right.
Of the original Star Wars trilogy, I just rewatched them. The third one is my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Nobody's going to fault you for my favorite is Return of the Jedi. Fucking nobody's going to fault you for that.
Right.
That's the easiest bad take you could possibly have, quote unquote.
Solo wasn't that bad.
Huh?
The movie, the Solo movie wasn't that bad.
It had good parts and it had really dumb parts. And the dumb parts are when they were trying to connect it to being Han Solo and the rest of Star Wars. The rest of it was a decent movie on its own, as long as you divorce it from Star Wars.
What's your name? Han. Han what? I don't have a family. Oh, so you're Solo.
Ugh.
That's the original.
Or the whole thing of like, well, you always shoot first. So they have this like a bastard mentor that's going to betray him. It's like, remember, you always shoot first. And then guess what he fucking does at the end? Oh, God, that made me mad.
We got Alex upset.
Let's throw in Darth Maul at the end, because you guys like Darth Maul, right? You remember Darth Maul.
I like
but Darth Maul. It's already established he's alive at that time.
Yeah, so same with Boba Fett. Neither one of those things are good.
Those things are good. Boba Fett's the light.
How about we have a series where people who die stay dead? Wouldn't that be nice? The good guys. If you're Jedi, you get a sort of ethereal life.
That was the thing. I didn't watch Rogue One for years because I was so mad at how they kept going on as a cash cow and resurrecting characters, and just like they all have to die at the end, and they have to stay dead. There cannot be a Rogue 2, and it didn't seem like it was going to be. And so I watched it, and it was kind of okay.
Kind of okay. Rogue One's good. It's just straight up good.
Rogue One's fine.
I was like, what's wrong with Rogue One? They don't resurrect anybody.
They don't resurrect anyone. I think there was a couple things that could have been tightened up or be better. It was fine.
It's okay. It's fine. It's good. It's good.
I like the robot.
Good is K2SO
the main things. Yeah,
the best character.
Talking about revisionist, like the main things that I don't like about Rogue One is that the rebels have got to be dirty. Like that's the other thing. Like as a modern trope, I can't stand. Like my heroes don't also need to be dirty. Like Star Wars is the hero of a thousand faces. Like there is good and there is evil, and they do battle. And the good guys get to be good guys, and the bad guys get to be bad guys.
So we don't need the modern take on like everything.
Yes, we get it. There's shades of gray everywhere. But
right. Well, and I'm okay with it. Again, Han Solo is great. Han Solo is an anti-hero. Han Solo can split the difference. The rebellion, the whole thing doesn't need to be, right? Like there doesn't need to be 2 feet away from Mon Mothma, there's a secret assassins guild. Like, no, fuck you, right? Like, and look, I mean, for the movie's sake, those assholes all died, right? But that's kind of the point, is that Cashin's been working with these 40 other dudes that are like, yeah, we're like the A team or whatever, like we're the we get shit done group. But like, yeah, Cashin just murdering dude, like, you know, the more I watch it, the less it stings, I guess, is the first time. But I hated that shit, you know, him being, you know, the assassin and just all this other stuff. But yeah, like Star Wars, like those are the tropes that drew me to Star Wars. Like you got your epic space battles, you got your space magic, whatever, but it's the good versus evil type stuff. If you want your, you know, I'm not saying it's discerning or complicated, go watch Star Trek or find a different sci-fi, right? But to kind of like go back and be like, yeah, well, the rebellion's really founded on like dozens of corpse planets because they murdered everybody in mass genocide so they could get, you know, the MacGuffins or whatever. Like, no, we don't need that in Star Wars. That's a different story. That go do something else, you know.
Star Wars, they don't blow up the Death Star. They commandeer it.
Right.
And they keep it.
Which which again, to credit, in the expanded universe, like they take over the Star Destroyers and the Super Star Destroyers, and I'm okay with that. That makes sense. But they don't necessarily like take over the slavery, right? They were like, oh well, the Empire couldn't get anything done without the Wookiee slaves, so who are we to free those guys? Like that would be the wrong trope for Star Wars, But okay, took a breath. We're good.
Yeah.
Should we just end it there?
I don't
Because
know.
we're pretty much at the end.
There's nothing else. We finished. We've exhausted this topic. We barely
No, we
talked
haven't.
about it anyway.
Yeah. None of us are on the other side of it.
Not to any great degree that's going to inspire a fight.
If you guys are lit nerds, pay us $8 and come fight me. We can do.
Well, they
that
might be
for
trying
our
to fight
Patreon.
us, but the chat's still not working.
It did work. There is at least one comment on there.
Did they say I want to
it's
fight
not
them?
loading. It's not loading for me. There's just like
Keep saying it's broken with a dog on it.
I see
It's a
something
monkey.
there. I don't know. I didn't do it.
You're the director. Fix it.
I didn't break YouTube.
You did.
No, I
The whole
didn't.
thing.
You did.
The whole thing.
Go back in time with your Odin Vetter Rashida and go fix it.
Yeah, but I'm not missing an
Speaking
eyeball.
of about bad takes,
We could take your
It was
eyeball.
fantastic.
No, yes, no. Nobody here is, except for me, is immune from bad takes.
you all please.
Off.
EG's got the second worst takes as far as like, especially around Star Wars lately. Holy crap!
Yeah, what's your opinion on the Mandalorian again, EG?
It's terrible.
Yeah,
There you have it, folks.
there you
Listen,
have it, folks.
just because everyone else is mindlessly lapping it up is fine. We got plenty of stupid fans. It's okay. We love you anyway. Pete, keep giving us money.
Tell us why we're wrong.
Not in the chat though, because it's broken.
Yeah,
But this-
just
Subscribe
can
to
tweet
our
us money-
subscribe to
pay
our
some money to
Patreon and come
Patreon.
tell us on Discord.
come on Discord
There
and
you
tell us.
Yes.
See, Discord works. Director hasn't broke that
Does,
yet.
For
Not yet,
now.
anyway.
if it is broken, I will try to find a fix it. But I see at least 2 comments, and they're there. I just like, so as far as I know,
I see
you
a,
can
I
talk
see
to
a
us.
purple monkey that says
Yeah.
something went wrong.
Mhm.
I don't know. Okay, fine.
Call YouTube.